What's up, everybody? Real with Omar, back again. I think this is my first guest that's been on the show 3 times now. This is the 3rd time,
yeah,
right?
You had,
I had you with somebody else, then by yourself, then I went on your show,
yes.
and here we are. Because so much has happened within a year, we got to recap. We were in the middle of a conversation, and I don't want to forget it, so I'm just going to jump on this. There's a metric, and that word I use that word a lot lately. There's a metric of lifts that separates you from the rest of humanity. I don't know. You'll know it when I finish it. If you can bench press your body weight, if you can deadlift double your body weight, if you can squat double. So what do you know the numbers? Because I know it's like
I don't know if I don't know it offhand,
2%.
But I definitely know what you're talking about. But I don't know the numbers offhand.
Okay.
I know I hit all those numbers like
Me too.
that I was supposed to.
Me too.
So,
I'm
we're
elite.
good there.
We're elite.
Okay,
we're
good.
I just want to say that. Fuck you. All right. No, because the one thing I've been noticing lately too is like, not to generalize everything, but there's so much sensitivity in the world lately that it's almost like you can't say what you're doing because you're gonna insult somebody. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but I don't need to diminish myself either, right? Like that becomes the contra, right? Like I don't want to diminish. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, why are you talking about that? Because I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like why are you intimidated by it? Get out there and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Right. So you wanted to ask about 50.
Yeah,
right?
man.
So I'm 50 now, guys. Yeah. Holla if you hear me, but I'm still good, though. I'm still good. I'm 50, but I really feel so much better than I did in my 40s because I had the hip replacements.
Okay.
And people didn't know I had osteoarthritis in both my hips. I had to have them replaced. I had them replaced 2 Marches ago. But that's not the story. The story is that when you have a severe arthritis, it's a disease, it's degenerative, right? So what it does is it starts breaking down your body. And what you do, depending on your particular personality makeup, is you start compensating. And what I did was I started moving differently. I didn't really even get it checked out till I had a limp so bad that I had to go to the doctor and be like, yo, I got to figure this out because something's wrong, right? I got to figure that out. But when I walked into the orthopedic surgeon, he was like, yo, somebody like, based on what I'm looking at, I expected to see you 10 years ago, right?
Wow.
So I've been enduring it for 10 years, right? So 2 years later now, my lifts are back, I'm squatting a lot better than I ever squat before. And so 50 to me feels like I guess 40 should have felt like. Because at 40, just moving hurt. So imagine just walking hurting. Getting out your chair, you're like, get up, hold your breath. Like I had to brace. Like I did all that, and I didn't do that knowing I didn't have to do that. I did that thinking this is getting older. This is getting older. But like I said, I got to a point where it was interfering with too much, so I needed some sort of solution. So I went to the doctor, and then then I was diagnosed. He was like, "Hey man, you have arthritis?" I was like, "No." He was like, "Well, you do," and da-da-da. And then he broke it down.
When did it start though?
I want to say.
I remember
I remember being a kid playing basketball. If I played too hard, my hip would hurt. Again, coming from Puerto Rican family, nobody talked about that shit. Like they were like, yeah, just suck it up. Go ahead.
Suck it up.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, I'm walking through my whole life this way. Like, and I'm working around it, and my deadlifts are more like stiff-legged deadlifts. They were like there was a lot like my hip movement couldn't be so I had to. I still wanted to lift heavy, and I had nobody to really tell me, though, this is not the way you should look, or why do you look that way? I just figured this was life, right?
Yeah.
And I just going through life. But so the answer in summary is I feel fucking great.
Okay.
I feel fucking great. I'm down to 230. Body fat is
great,
down. Body fat is looking crazy. Looking better naked. It is what it is.
It is what it is, man. That's the name of the game. That's what we train for, right? Look better naked. That's it. That's what I say.
At the bottom of it all. At the bottom of it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I feel like 50 now is not what 50 was 20 years ago. Because a lot of my older cousins and like guys I grew up with, they're like 50, 48, 49.
But they look
50.
weathered. Because,
some do.
Because of the lifestyle.
Yes.
Let's go back. Let's go into that, right?
I will say that does play a role in how people age, right? Like the mileage on your body. Right. So like me now, like I stopped drinking, right?
Okay.
Just because it just no longer served me. Not saying I'll never have a drink again, but I just feel like I went out one night.
It slows me down.
Yeah, it slowed me down. I was down for like 3 days, and I don't want to feel like
I don't want to lose
anymore.
3 days.
So I started doing that, and then I started doing like all these other things like biohacking. You know, that's like a new thing right now, right? So cold plunging, sauna, trying to do some contrast therapy.
You did your blood work and all that?
Yeah, so I did my blood work, and that's another thing I noticed, right? So they tell you that your testosterone drops off. I forgot what age it is. I think it's like every year past 30, it drops off a certain percentage, right?
Right.
So my optimal ranges were between like 550 and like 7 something.
Okay.
Right? So 2 years ago, that's what they were. Mm-hmm. Then I went for some blood work.
You go every year?
I go every 6 months. Bro.
Oh, damn. All right.
Yeah, I ain't playing games, man, just because I wanted to make sure that my levels were where they needed to be for me to perform optimally.
Okay.
Right? And my numbers dropped off drastically in 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, it was like in 2 years, which is about what they said it would do, like 150 to 100 points in 2 years. Wow. And they said that's like a decent like drop off. That's not
a decent descent.
Yeah, that's not like something that you should be concerned about. But you have to make sure like you're taking certain supplements to make sure, like boron and all these stuff and all these things. I take ashwagandha, Fedosia agrestis, things like that, like natural holistic things that keep these levels up because
as high as possible.
Yeah, because testosterone, as you know, for men, it's our driving force. The minute that drops off, you know, you're in trouble. And the thing is, you want to make sure that you're in optimal ranges and not too high. Right. But it's so drastic. It's like from 350 to like 1100.
Wow.
So like your range may be like in the 7s or the 5s or whatever.
And all that is unique to the person.
It's unique to the person, right? So they're just trying to figure out where your optimal ranges are. So they ask you a bunch of questions like, do you feel like you have like, you know, clouded memory? Or do you feel like you're lethargic? Or, you know, do you have, you know, lack of interest in like working out or moving your body? I'm like, nah, I don't really feel like that. So, you know, and my musculature is still there. So they're like, all right, man, we're going to keep you in between these ranges. You should be fine with taking the things that you're taking. So that was a game changer. And then watching, and I don't know if did you watch the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight?
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm looking at the guys that were my like childhood like heroes.
Mike.
They look old.
Yeah,
and older. That was a game changer for me because like the worst part about getting old is knowing that you're getting old and that every day.
The worst part about getting old is knowing that you're old.
Because every day that goes by, you lose a little bit of those like superhero attributes that you had.
Right.
You know, because like, you know, 40-year-old Omar isn't as strong as 50-year-old Omar, right? And then it's going to continue to drop off slowly as we age, knowing that like I want to be a terror till I'm like 75, but like I know that shit's not going to be a thing. So that scares the shit out of me.
Well, yes and no. I'll counter that statement with this. Like if your comparison is other 7-year-olds, you will be a terror. Now, if you're comparing yourself with other 30-year-olds, now you're like, now if you're like Mike, 58, trying to fight a 20-something-year-old, it's gonna show, right?
Yeah, it's gonna show.
And besides that, I mean, if we're gonna go into that conversation real quick with Mike, he looked hurt. Something was wrong with his leg. He wasn't moving on his legs. He wasn't shifting weight.
I have so many.
So nobody knows, right? But
so many thoughts about that fight.
Right.
I believe that they told Mike like, don't go crazy.
Well, they don't want to have a health problem, right? They don't want. Right.
I also feel like he was pulling punches. He wasn't really doing what he could have done. And you know, let's keep it real. 20 mil was on the table.
20 mil, and he just had a scare 5 months ago.
Yeah,
like a life scare, right?
Blood
like
transfusions and so on and so forth. So like, I get it.
Yeah, and by the way, just to give you a contra, right? Like, so I had my surgery 2 years ago. I would say, a year and a half ago. I would say a year and a half ago now, I'm starting to feel normal. So imagine, you almost died 5 months ago, but here you got to get on stage and fight a guy, right, who's trying to take your head off. Like, that's a whole different thing, bro. Like, come on. Like, the fact that
and no shade to Mike, he looked phenomenal. He's still one of my he was jacked, bro. He was jacked out of his mind.
He was looking good.
He's still one of my favorite boxers of all time. It's just like to see the guy that you once knew was a menace, right? Look like that to me.
He was a superhero.
He was a superhero. Yeah, so now my superheroes, the guys that I look up to, like like Deion Sanders was the guy when I was coming up. He now has a fully gray beard, and both his boys are like playing D1 football. You know, it's weird. So to see that come around, that's a little not scary because it's a blessing at the same time. But just knowing like we're getting older, and then there's this like reel that's out on Instagram. It's like, a 40-year-old has 50-something% more life left because I think the average life expectancy of a human male is like 76 years old.
Okay.
So now when you start creeping up towards that number, we're on the other side now. So it's like, damn,
we're going downhill.
Yeah, like
we're not climbing
it's
anymore.
a little spooky for me, but at the end of the day, it's a blessing to get old. So it's a gift and a curse at the same time. It's just I'm trying to do everything in my power to be as dangerous as possible.
Okay.
I'm still lifting.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I picked up some endurance sports and, just trying to do
so
something different.
You've been labeling yourself a hybrid athlete now.
Yeah,
Can you break that down for people?
It basically is just a CrossFitter who doesn't do Olympic lifts.
Okay.
In essence, man,
Okay.
You go out there, you can run a 5K, but also you can move some weight. So it's basically a person who can run and do functional fitness.
Right.
And that's what we've been doing in CrossFit for the longest. It's just I don't really do the Olympic lifts anymore.
Is there a reason?
My body can't take it anymore, man. Okay. Like I can still power clean, I can power snatch, but if you're telling me, hey,
squat.
Let's go one rep max squat clean.
Right.
I don't know, man, because my knees got miles on it, man. My left knee in particular.
I remember we were working out that day at the box, and you tore something, right?
Yeah, my knee. So I have a janky ass left meniscus, and I have a partial tearing in, and then like there's weeks where it feels great,
and other weeks,
and there's other weeks where it's like,
Ow. Yeah.
So I was like, listen, I'm probably just gonna lay off the Olympic lifts, and being a hybrid athlete is literally just being like a scaled CrossFit athlete. That's just, my thing.
Well, the fact that you label yourself that, I mean, so many people label themselves things. You're a police officer.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So talk to me about that for a second. And I'm not being disrespectful when I say this. I'm not trying to go behind the shield. I know there's a culture of that, yo, man, you're brothers. You put on a suit, you're brother. Like, we're on the team.
Yeah.
No matter what, I got to get you back, whatever. But tell me how that helped develop you into the person you became. And what I mean by that is this, right? I'm a lender / broker.
Yeah.
There are no people like me, right? And what I mean by that, there's no Puerto Ricans that own their own platform. There's no Puerto Ricans that sell $1 million units by themselves. And I'm not saying this to sound cool. I'm just saying that we're all entitled to it. The fact that it sounds weird coming out of my mouth is the problem. The problem is that no matter what color you are, you should be, if you're qualified, you should be able to get the job, right?
Absolutely.
So going back to you, as a police officer, obviously, I think one of the challenges for us, and when I say us, I mean minorities, is that we go into minority neighborhoods, right? Like, and I have a really, really different, I have a perspective on it now, and I'll give you that, and then I'll get to the question. I grew up in 196 Jerome in the Bronx. For those who know, it's a real heavy area. I moved to Pelham Bay. About 4 years ago, I moved to New Rochelle. Very nice area. I moved my kids with me, and they didn't understand what I was moving. Like they didn't get it. They were like 18. Now they get it. They kind of say, "Oh wow." So what I mean to say is this: like I have my office building in 644 Soundview. If you need a loan or real estate, hit me there. But I'm going through Soundview, right? I'm going through Soundview in my Alpina. You know what that is.
Yeah.
So when I'm there, my doors are locked, right? And I have a parking lot, closed parking lot. So I feel very safe, right? That to say, when I come to my neighborhood, I feel very safe, right? But there's nobody that looks like me in my neighborhood. There's maybe one other Latin family. There's an African family next to me on my left. There's Germans on the right. It's a very eclectic mix, right? Yeah. And I love it. Everybody is just, taking care of their family, hanging out. I started a WhatsApp group because I felt having community. And so we had a meeting. And they were like, "Hey man, what do you guys think?" And I'm not the president of the board like that, but there's 70 homes in my community, and I was like, guys, I think we should have a group messenger. I said, because if one of you guys ever knocked on my door, because this happened one time, they knocked on my door looking for me. We don't know who you are.
Yeah.
My son is like, yeah, and the guy's like, "Oh, is Omar here?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Can you call him for me?" My son was like, "No." He's like,
no,
I don't know you. I said, and I said, it's not a shot at you, but if we're gonna be a community, we have to have an interchange. Like the first house off the block gets a lot of wild shit, like people that escape mental homes, whatever. The funniest shit, the people closest to the main street get the crazy visitors, right? And then you're like, you want to be helpful, but you don't know what's going on. So I'm just using that to really color like security. Like in the hood, growing up, we grew up with drug dealers, we grew up with crackheads. I felt secure in the hood. I knew all of them. Yeah. They knew me. Leave them alone. But now I'm older and I have shit and I have to feel secure. And my kids, I want them to feel secure. But again, I try to make them very aware of they have shit, be aware of your privilege. I'm not trying to spoil my kid, but know that you live in a good neighborhood.
Yeah.
Know that you have nice shit.
Yep.
Know, like, and I know me saying this to you right now is just resonating because my mother used to always say it to me, rest in peace. I was like, anybody ever comes to you for your shit, just give it up. I'll buy it. Don't worry about it. Anything. What I need you back.
Yeah.
Everything else we can replace.
Everything's replaceable.
Right?
Humans aren't. Yeah.
But I know it sounds corny, but I grew up in the 80s. Yo, bro, it was a different world. Yeah. It was, New York was not what New York is now. And even though people complain about New York now.
Yeah, it's still not what it
80s,
was in the 80s.
The 80s, let me give you a quick description. I was 14 years old. I'm from the pizzeria looking at the kids play video games because I didn't have no money to play the video games. So I'm outside looking. I had guys walk up to me, measure their feet against my feet because they were going to rob. Like, that's the kind of neighborhood I grew up in. It's very
New
different.
York for you, I tell you that.
So going back to you, how do you juggle that? Obviously, you're a police officer, so and mad respect. I want to give you your flowers. Mad respect to you. People don't understand that you've been on calls with friends of ours where their family members are having mental breakdowns, and you're on call. Like, there should be a special award for you because as a strong individual, for somebody else to see me in that state, and it's hard. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like, you know.
Yeah.
We're all brothers. We all and we can deadlift 1,000 pounds. That shit don't mean anything. Mm-hmm. When you're emotionally or mentally broken, that shit is bigger than anything. So, what did you use as your example of the cop you wanted to be? Did you have that? Because I didn't have it. I don't have a role model. I didn't have a mentor. I just knew that I wanted to do right. Doing the right thing is always the right thing for me.
There was a guy named Charlie Walker. Yonkers guy.
So give him his flowers.
Yeah, I always give Charlie Walker his flowers because he was the first guy that I ever saw that looked like me.
So he was a black guy?
Black dude,
okay.
Black dude. And I saw him go on a call one time.
Explain what a call is, please. I mean, I want people to understand.
So it was a call of service. I forgot what it was. I think it was something like some kind of noise complaint or something like that. I know it was a bunch of dudes on the street. And I was young at the time.
This is Yonkers?
Yeah, this is Yonkers. Okay. I was probably like 18 or 19. I was about 19 years old.
Before you're on the force?
Way before I was
on
the force.
So this is
I didn't
like
get on until I was like 22.
This is like almost like an inspirational thing, all right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I seen him. And I had known Charlie because Charlie was just like a neighborhood guy. He used to work at St. Joseph's Hospital. He's like a cook in the kitchen or something like that. My mom used to work at St. Joseph's.
And he was a cop?
No, this is before he was a cop.
Before he was a cop. Okay. You knew him before that. Okay, my bad. Okay.
He was just a cool looking dude, right? So that's how I, remember him. And I remember him getting on. I'm like 19 years old. I'm by School Street. He goes on a call, and like everybody out there knew him, and he gave everybody the respect that they deserved as human beings. And I was like, yo.
Can you elaborate on that?
Because sometimes you guys go to calls, and it's like, I don't want to throw shade at anybody, but like if you're not from the community, if you don't understand culture, then these are just a bunch of guys hanging out in front of their building because whatever, I'm from that environment, so I know why dudes hang out in front of the building. Some people are just out there to escape their apartment because there's only one AC in the apartment, or there's just some tumultuous shit going on up there. And some guys are out there just doing shit they're not supposed to. So I get it, but everybody from the good guy to the bad guy respected Charlie, and I said I wanted to be like that guy. So he was just one of the dudes that kind of gave me the inspiration to like take this job. He made it look cool too because he wasn't a corny guy. Mm-hmm. So
he wasn't selling the job.
No,
he was just being him.
Yeah, he was just being him, man, and like everybody knew him. Like he was a cool guy that everybody knew, and everybody gave him the respect. And I always said if I could be that kind of cop, then I think I did my due diligence, on the force, being able to come into a situation and be able to, mediate and people be like, nah, that's Jay, he's cool, whatever. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. You speak about that call, and we all have that in our family. There's always one or two people that are going through something, and we are no different than anybody else. You need to have that empathy and compassion to know that there's no such thing as a perfect family, and it's the human experience. Part of it is suffering, and when you see somebody else suffer, and you can suffer for a multitude of reasons, but when it's like family based, that's not in our control, right? It's a higher power that has a control over that, and it's my job just to, if I can help in any shape, form, or fashion, that's what I'm gonna do, man. That particular call really resonates with me because I love that dude. You know what I'm saying? And to see him like that, I said, hey man, if you need anything, just let me know. And I made sure I did like the follow up and so on to make sure that she got what she needed. But we're all human. At the end of the day, we're all gonna go through things, and we just have to keep that in mind when we move through the world, because there's a lot of divisive things out here that try to separate us. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. So regardless of your race, creed, ethnicity, whatever have you,
belief, religious belief,
whatever it is, we are all the same, man. We're human beings. We're all one race.
We all bleed red, and we all love.
Yeah.
We want to be loved, right?
That's it, man.
So you said culture. That word has been becoming such a big word for me lately, because on the real estate segment, we had to take. They just started as inclusion, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Whatever. Where now all of a sudden we should pay attention. We should have always fucking paid attention. That's another conversation. Then there's words like cultural competence and cultural inclusion. And I'm like, you mean not being a fucking racist? Because that's all that means. I'm sorry. I gotta talk to the camera. That's what that means. I know you guys want to rebrand everything and market it like it wasn't around.
Yeah.
So my statement on that is this. First of all, I believe racism comes out of ignorance, right? And ignorance gets
100%.
perpetuated through the generations, right? Like, you don't wake up racist, but if your father's racist, he's going to somehow, there'll be some osmosis, right? And you learn behavior, and that's how that works. But I've been very lucky in my life where I've traveled so many different corridors. I've been around, a lot of money, very little money. And one thing I was able to notice was that there's base denominators, right? There's certain self-evident facts, going back to what I said about being loved and loving people. Like, I've seen very rich families deal with, use this example, the sexual identity of their son. Like, and it wasn't his father, it was his stepfather. And I'm bearing witness because I was a doorman, right? So I was like,
yeah.
And they're like, what do you think? And like, you're not, like, when you're trained to work at like certain buildings, and this is in the 90s, I don't know what it is now, you're trained to be seen but not heard. Like, they'll tell you, do not interact. If the client asks you a question, the only question, I was an elevator man.
Speak when spoken.
Yeah, I was an elevator man. My job was to say what floor, right? But you're in a box with them, they start talking, you're like, oh, okay. And then, so you start bear witnessing to a lot of things. And going back to the contra, like, growing up very poor, but like, as long as you knew if you could eat, that was a major thing. And then the second thing becomes humanity, right? Like, my mother's pillar was always work hard, work hard, work hard. Why? Because she was so in fear of not being able to provide or pay her rent, or like, that was her thing. That was her driver. And my hustle comes from that drive, because I knew I didn't want to be in that profession that she was in, but I understood as I traveled through the corridor, I use that term a lot, and met different people. I was like, wait a minute. So we have a certain amount of time during the day, and some people get paid hourly, but other people get paid really, really big for making things happen, And that's I kind of drifted that way. I was like, let me explore this. And even though the number one job for me was, when I was growing up, I was like, be a cop, be a sanitation worker, just get your pension, be safe. And unfortunately, that just wasn't in the cards for me. Right? I was young, I idolized a lot of guys on the street. I didn't know any better. I didn't have a real father figure, and my father figure, rest in peace, now was, in the mob. So it wasn't, I didn't have the best. I didn't have the best. Like, example. They were like, yo, fuck those people. I was like, word? Okay. Good fella. Like, I'd be cheering for the bad guy. Like, all that stuff. So I had to go through my own process of revelation and understand that. So it was great that you had a guy like Charlie. I guess I came from the other side where I didn't have a guy. So I was looking for a guy. And I guess one of the reasons that I produce so much content is because I want to be the guy. And not for one person in particular, for anybody who's on the come up or not even know where to fucking start and not know like what options there are. Like, because going back to illiteracy and ignorance, financial illiteracy, economic ignorance, there's so many people that don't know the opportunities that are out there. And so they disqualify themselves. Yo, I can't do that. Why? Because, 5 of my friends said I couldn't do that. Oh, 5 of my friends are doing that. So I guess I've got to do, like, I'm trying to create active thinkers. And I, as like 2024, we were talking about it, was a really tough year for me, right? I lost my mother. It's a lot of reflection. And I guess it's becoming more clear to me in terms of what exactly I want to leave, right? And I'm not leaving the earth tomorrow, but I want to leave a path so people can understand. Like, they could put, for you guys at home, like, make sure you do the fucking work, because if you don't do the work, we're just talking, right? You know, I want to do that too. Oh my, well, you got to wake up at this time every day for 6 years. Oh, that's too hard. Well, you just disqualified yourself.
Yeah.
Right? But it goes back.
Days.
I know you have guys who come up to you, hey man, I want to look like you too. Well, I'm a vegan. I eat this. I do my blood work. I count macro. Whatever. It seems like a lot of work. It fucking is.
Yeah.
Right? It fucking is. But these are the results. And if you want it bad enough, it won't seem like a lot of work. It just seems like the price of success. You know, and most people are not willing to pay that price.
That is the truth.
All right, so
that
I want,
is the God's truth.
I want to lead you into that statement, because you must get that all the time. Yo, Jay, yo, you influence. Yo, you this. Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Yo, how do you fit all the time in? Well, I kind of try to be structured with my time.
Yeah.
And I have to be disciplined, right? Most people lack that. They lack discipline, but they want the result. And I'm like, you can't have the effect without the cause.
Yep.
And you are the cause, right? What have you seen in your travels through your corridors?
I feel like it really, like, everything you said kind of hits home, because like you're saying it, and I'm like, yo, like, you know how many times people told me I couldn't do X, Y, and Z? Just like, and sometimes it's the people closest to you, and I don't know if it's because they're scared to see you fail because they failed doing it.
Yes, they're projecting. They're projecting
exactly
their insecurities onto you.
Yeah, because, you know, maybe they're trying to keep you safe. You know, I don't know, but like everything you said really resonates, because and I don't know if it, like I said, it goes back to the whole culture thing. Like, they can't teach you something that they don't know, right? Correct. So like the minute you step
and they
out,
don't believe.
Yes.
Right? They don't believe because it's so foreign to them. Like, I can really teach a lot of things, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, because I applied it. Mm-hmm. I did it. I stumbled.
Yeah.
I went through the pain of it, but then I was like, yo, it fucking works. So like my conviction is there because I've done it.
Yeah.
It's hard for that family member, and then I'll go Latino. I had to say it like real white. Latino on you, where they're like, where you have machismo guys. They're like, yo, you couldn't do that. Well, I didn't do that, so you can't do that. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. I can do that, and it's hard because you got to be strong where you don't get sucked into that game of ego. I'm going to show you, because it doesn't matter what he thinks. Mm-hmm. If the end result is going to benefit you, then that should be your driver. Right? It becomes, I mean, some people use it, I use that as fuel. That's cool, but that's finite, because eventually you're going to surpass that, and then what? How do you keep going?
Exactly.
How do you keep going? Yeah. Right?
I'm always looking to like push the needle. Mm-hmm. So that's something that like I've always tried to focus on. Like, I'm never comfortable in one space. There's always room for growth. There's always room for change. So people will see me and they'll be like, well, you know, I know you've been a cop a long time. What are you going to do when you retire? I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know I'm setting that up right now. I'm not waiting to the bitter end.
You're exploring.
To figure out what I'm doing.
Right,
yeah.
You're exploring. Yeah.
I want to know what, you know, like, I know there's certain things I need to be happy, right? And if I can do that post-police career, then that's something. If I can monetize that, then I'm okay, then I'm good to go. Right. Then I know I have something that I can start working towards. But I know, like, I didn't want to be the guy that, like, left this, you know, era of law enforcement to go into a whole nother 20 years of something else. Right. Law enforcement related. I want to use, like, you know, wellness and, you know, my ability to connect with people and see if I can, you know, monetize that. So that's something that, like, I've been putting the wheels in motion to, and people are like, people starting to see, like, the shift, and they're seeing, like, oh man, you do a lot of things in a day. Like, how do you find time, right? And it goes back to, you're gonna make time for the things that you want in your life.
You make the time. You don't have the time.
You don't have the time. Right. Yeah. So I'm big on, you know, finding the windows. Okay. There's a guy. His name is Todd Cuccia. He's a local. He's a Westchester guy. I believe he's in finance, but he was on a podcast with Vinny Brusco, who has the.
I know Vinny. Yeah. Vinny was supposed to be here today, but his son had a fever.
Okay.
So shout out to Vinny.
Shout out to Vin, man. Yeah. He had Todd on his show, and Todd was talking about finding the windows. And when he said finding the windows, that really resonated with me, because
it made sense.
Because, you know, we have 24 hours in a day, right? So you throw sleep in there, you throw work in there, you throw, you know, any kind of family.
You throw the immutables, things that you cannot not do, right?
Yeah,
you throw
exactly.
the immutables, yeah.
You know, and then you have to figure out, all right, well, what am I going to do to make myself better today?
Right.
Right. And that may not look like 3 hours. That may look like 90 minutes. That may look like an hour. Mm-hmm. All right. You got to find the window and optimize and use that window and do something with it. So when I heard that, I was like, yeah, I got to start focusing on that. So like,
you feel you haven't been? I feel like, I mean, ever since I met you, I mean, maybe
sometimes you get knocked off your
maybe
pivot,
you weren't
man.
as refined. Maybe you were in the beginning when I first met you. You weren't as refined. You were kind of just throwing shit out there, kind of seeing right.
Shit sticks to the wall.
Yeah, you're like,
what I mean?
oh, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna see how that goes, right? And then and so that lit up a light bulb in your head, and now made what your actions more definitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like now, I have a lot more direction. I have a lot more. I'd say a lot more ambition, man. Like I suffer from imposter syndrome. It's crazy because like I'll sit in rooms with guys, like I do a lot of work with special forces guys, like Rangers and Green Berets, through a company called O2X.
Do you mind saying what kind of work? Just so, I mean, just to give people a little. It doesn't have to.
Oh yeah, so I do some side work with a company called O2X, it's a human performance company. So their motto is eat, sleep, thrive, and they run these workshops where the eat portion will have like a nutritionist or a dietitian come in and kind of explain how you should be eating during your tour, be it you're a firefighter, law enforcement, or in military personnel. And then they sleep. They have a sleep specialist. They have a meditation specialist that comes in and teaches that. And then they have the sweat portion, which is where I come in. They'll have like a head instructor, and then I'll come in as an assistant instructor. And we basically run workouts during these workshops. And you sit in these rooms with guys who have deployed overseas, who are special forces guys, right? And I'm looking at these dudes like they're demigods, right? I'm like, oh, these guys, went overseas. You guys are special forces. You guys are like tier 1 operators. And then they're looking at me sitting in these rooms, and I'm an equal to them, which is wild because like I'm looking at these guys in such a way that, I can't believe I'm sitting in a room with these dudes, and they're like, oh man, nah, dude, like you got a story, like what you do on a daily basis is awesome, especially in the mental health space, and like, you're physically fit, so you set an example for, other guys that are in this profession that are looking for some kind of guidance, so they can look to you and see like, hey, this guy can do it, maybe I can. So just to sit in rooms with guys who I believe are established, and they're saying like, oh man, like you're one of us, it puts things into perspective. And I don't know if that my imposter syndrome comes from like, my childhood. I was always taught like, you can't be mediocre. There's no room for mediocrity.
Who told you that?
My father.
Okay.
My father was very big on that. Very big on that.
Don't be in the middle?
Don't be in the middle. He said, if you're above average, even if you fall short, you'll be in the middle. But if you're up here, even if you fall short, you'll be above the guy that's just barely making it. And that's coming from a guy who, my parents are immigrants, right? My father looks like me, right? But was born and raised in Honduras, came over here when he was like 13.
How's his English?
Great.
Now it is?
Yeah, phenomenal.
Okay.
You couldn't even tell that my father, his
Okay.
first language was Spanish. And, the one thing that he taught me, it was that there's no room for mediocrity. You have to be exceptional. And
whatever that is.
Whatever that is,
right.
You have to be exceptional. And that's one thing that I think that resonates in my life to this day.
Well, that has to be a driver for you, especially at the time in your life. There are certain times in our lives where we're very, very, the word I'm going to use is on purpose, receptive to suggestion, right? They say being teachable is incredible, right?
Absolutely.
As an adult, right? As an adult. But, so there's I want to talk about this because I was talking about this with Maggie earlier today.
Being teachable, I love that.
Yeah, being teachable. Also, we all have an animal, right? And you have to be aware. I have a really fucked up animal inside of me. It's all the trauma, it's all this, all that. So sometimes when things get hot, he comes out and he serves me well for certain things. He serves me well and I'm using this as a metaphor, when the whole world's on fire, I can walk forward. Like most people are like, oh, I don't know what to do. They cringe. I walk right through. I don't care. I'm that guy. And he's great for those emergency situations. But also sometimes he manifests when when you're having a disagreement, and there's a time and a place for that guy. And me as a 50-year-old man telling you as a 42-year-old man, like I'm aware that I'm working on that. Like I'm aware.
Still at 50.
Forever until I die, because it's almost like you're wrestling, like the story of the wolves, right? Which wolf are you gonna feed?
Yeah.
Right. when I need somebody, like when everything falls apart and everything looks like it's stacked against you, that's the guy who comes out, because I'd rather die than live not knowing. So I'm gonna go, right? And that's very useful for certain things. Very not useful, bro. Like he comes out, he's like, am I time to come out? No, hold on, we good. And I use that only because I'm speaking to you, because I know that, especially even in your line of work, right? You gotta have that. You gotta have the turn on. Like your job is like, yo, tomorrow we have to deal with hostages, like, or today, you know, we're dealing with a cat stuck in the tree.
Let me ask you a question. As 50-year-old Omar, right? Like controlling. Do you find is it easier to control that animal, or is it harder now? Because
it becomes awareness. It becomes awareness.
Okay.
So when you're young, you're ignorant, and you kind of tend to shift into. I use this all the time. Into your hard programming. And hard programming is when you're a kid, what you see, what your parents punch into your head, and physically and mentally and emotionally, they drill something. Like, you had a great thing from your pops, be exceptional, right? I didn't have that. I said, be safe and shut up and whatever. I'm not mad at it, but but you use it to create the person you want to be. And the person we create sometimes is the person we need, right? We need to be that. And
comes a bar,
we sometimes, I told you, I have a mentor. I consider myself very lucky. Some people not with 2024. Some people are like, oh, you bugging? I'm like, no. I'm lucky. I mean, I had my mom for almost 70 years. Like, all those things, I look at it that way. But I'm also very aware that the luck has a lot to do with the energy you put out. And as long as you're doing things from really a good place, even in the beginning, I've walked away from really big financial situations because it was gonna eat my soul, and I knew that, and I was like, you know what, I gotta walk away. I can't do this because
it's not conscious.
No, it's not. It's not even that. It's like, you don't want to live that way. There's a way of you meet people and you people say about I feel your vibe is and I protect it and I'm aware of it, and it's not something I'm creating. It's who I am. But if you start encumbering yourself with things that you don't have to, you start carrying baggage. That light gets a little dimmer because you're currently holding all this other garbage. For example, when my hips were really hurting, I had 20% of me was just to kind of stay calm while you're in pain, while you're walking to the bathroom, while you're going to work, while you're dealing with everyday shit. There's 20% of you that has to stay kind of handling that.
Yeah.
So that's 20% less that you have to do the shit you want to, because it has to. You need that just to be normal, just to be like a normal person. So now that I've lifted that, I got perspective. I'm like, damn, wow, I got all this energy because I used to have 20% of my energy every day just to walk around was used that way. Think about that, right? The effort it took, the this, the that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so you're carrying that weight, but I dropped the weight off. Now all of a sudden you're feeling lighter, you're feeling better. Things are not as hard. So, and you can't become a slave to convenience or live in they call it a golden cage, right? Where you're like, oh, because of this. Listen, bro, I've had a lot of money and I've had not a lot of money. And I like having a lot of money, but at a certain cost. If it means I have to ignore my kids, when I'm young, it was different because, you're young and they're really young. They don't need you to be watching them 24 hours a day. But now, as my kids are 20, 24, 29, they're young men now. So I want to be available just to talk whatever talk they want to talk. Yeah. And tonight we're going to play basketball. I'm 50. I'm running with 24-year-olds. Yeah. yeah. But I get the call. Yo, Dad, you coming? All right, let's do it.
I think that's when you get to enjoy your kids, right? When they're adults. Because there's so much shit that you got to go through, right? As a parent, right? Just to get your kid to the adult side, right?
Well, bro, I'll break it down for you this way. Listen, I had my first son at 19. I was a kid. Fuck am I teaching him? I'm still learning, right? And now my 20-year-old, I'm 50, I'm like, I still don't got it. Let me be clear. I still don't have it all figured out. Let me be clear. But I know more than I did back then. So I can give him something, right? I can give him something. And we both learn. And I think the best feeling is when they spit some shit back at you that you said to them. You're like,
oh, yeah. That means they were listening and they applied.
It's working. Yeah.
I mean, to me, I think that's a blessing when you see that, when you see parents enjoying their children and vice versa. Because we're not here for a long time, right? And time is the only commodity that we can't get back.
Right. No matter how much money you got.
No matter how much money you got. Today is come and gone, and like tomorrow's going to be a new day. But let me ask you a question. As a 50-year-old father, right?
50. Go ahead.
When you look at your kids and you think about all the sacrifices that you made, right? Do you feel like it was worth it?
What? The sacrifices?
The sacrifice.
They're not sacrifices to me. They're prices.
The prices.
The price of success. The price of success to me is, I got a 29-year-old kid. Is he 30 yet? No, he's going to be 30. That calls me for advice. And
that's dope.
Full disclosure, we went through a period, we didn't speak for 5 years. And that hurt me, but it was necessary. Going back to the price of success, right? The relationship I had with him earlier was so convoluted because I had him when I was young. My mother, his grandmother, his mother's grandma, there was so many people involved in forming this person. And you're 19, right? I'm 19, 20, and I'm still going to college. So I don't have the time to invest. And as a 50-year-old man, I can tell you that, and now I know that. At 20 years old, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You start seeing, at that point in my life, I said, look, man, until we can do this, I broke it down. Until we can do this, we can't have a relationship. This is not the relationship that I want with you.
Yeah.
And he took it offensive in the beginning, and then, years passed, and I'm going through the whole thing with my mother and dealing with that. So I have a whole bunch of fires, right? Going back to the whole metaphor of walking through fire. I'm walking, even though everybody else would have been gave up. I'm walking. And finally I called him, and I texted him. It was my birthday a couple of years ago, and he was like, "Oh, so happy that you called me." It became a good thing. But our relationship now is so much better than it was. And maybe it's because I had to go through my shit. Maybe I was going through some traumatic shit with my mother. I was dealing with all that, and I just didn't have the bandwidth, if that's the term. I didn't have the patience, because going back to, all right, my hips were taking 20%, my mother's taking 40%, how much is left of me? Yeah. And and I'm not copping out to it, but I'm being real. You protect, all these statements that I put out there, protect your energy, be aware, it's real shit. If you really introspectively look at yourself, you can break it down. You'll be like, oh, why was I such a dick yesterday? Oh, well, this. You're and then you can always go back to it and be like, I'm sorry about it. And how do you mitigate it from happening again? That is the puzzle that we're all trying to solve, right? How do we become the best versions of ourselves? Well, we just can't ignore that we were fucked up yesterday. You can give yourself some grace.
You got to address it at some point, right?
Be accountable to it, address it, and how do you change your behavior pattern going forward so it doesn't happen again? Right? It becomes that. It's almost like training, working out. What worked, or practice in sports? Practice, play, look at your mistakes, practice again.
Yeah, fix it.
It's the cycle. Yeah. It's the cycle, right? And that's life. That's life in a nutshell, right? If you care. Some people don't give a fuck. Some people be like, fuck, this is me.
Those are tough waters to navigate, man. Funny that you bring that. You didn't speak to your son for 5 years.
One of the hardest things I ever did in my life.
I haven't spoken to my dad in 2 years, man. And that's, not something I initiated, and I never really speak about this, but, the fact that you brought that up is you think, right, that, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm the only one that's going through this. And then you just mentioned, I didn't talk to my son for 5 years.
Yeah.
And, every day I pray for my father. I try to figure out why is it that he doesn't speak to me? And he has his reasons why he doesn't speak to me.
He has his own legitimate reasons to himself.
Right.
So of course.
Yeah, it's nothing I did to him.
It becomes his truth, right?
Yeah, it's nothing I did to him. He just woke up one day and decided that, he no longer wanted to reach out because, he doesn't live in this state. So.
Oh, he's out of the country.
Yeah, no. Well, he spends half the year in Honduras. He spends about 6 months in Honduras because we have property there. Mm-hmm. And the other half, he's at his retirement home with my mom in South Carolina.
Okay.
And
they're still together?
They're still together.
All right, and you and mom talk?
Yeah, I talk to my mother every single day.
So it's an independent thing. Okay.
Yeah. It was, it's some family stuff that, I guess my brother addressed something about him being a more active grandfather, and I don't think he really liked what my brother roped.
Your brother said something about he should be a more active grandfather?
Yeah, my father should be more active in his grandkids' lives.
Okay.
And, he's kind of stretched thin because, his mother, my grandmother, still lives in Honduras, wants to remain.
Dad's mom still alive?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. So how old is she? I'm not trying to be funny.
She's got to be like 80 something.
So you got some generations going on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So,
and that, guys, is the culture, right? You got to understand. That's the culture. Spanish culture, black culture. We take care of our own. I would say more of my Anglo friends are kind of like, oh, well, they're in the retirement home.
We don't do that.
Right. We don't do that. And so imagine what I had to go through when I had to put my mother in a nursing home. When I was like, I can't. I'm gonna die. Like it was that decision. It was either I'm gonna fucking die, or I gotta make an action. Because it was binary. So then I had to make that hard decision. Then you have to live with the guilt every day. And then going back to taking away your energy. Like you got to deal with that. You got to mentally talk to yourself every day. Yo, man, you doing the right thing. You doing the right. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it becomes a thing, and you start adding the things in your life, and you wonder, where do I have time for anything else? Right?
Yeah. Finding those windows, man. But like. With my dad.
All right, so going back to Pop. Pop is not. All right,
with my dad, it's just like I don't know when that day is gonna come. You know what I mean? I don't know if, I'm gonna have to reach out or my father's gonna reach out. I highly doubt that my father will reach out, but at some point, I've been trying to find the words to be like, I don't know, why is it that you decided to stop speaking to me? But at some point we're gonna have to speak. Life is short, and my dad feels like he can live forever, but I know.
Is he a very communicative person? Like, there's a generation that,
dude, it's so strange, man, because, like, I remember being younger and my father just, like, talking to me all the time.
Right.
Telling
you
me
told
shit.
me.
Yeah,
you told me,
like,
be exceptional.
Yeah, be exceptional, be this, be that, like. And then, I guess, as we got older and he got older, the communication lessened, like. Put it this way, I can call my dad 5 or 6 days straight. Right. And if I don't call the 7th day or the 6th day, whatever, he won't call. That's just how he's. Like, you have to reach out to him. It's not like, it's not a two-way.
He's OG.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's almost like you owe it to him to call him.
It's that OG-ness, is that machismo?
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's not a question, bro. I've lost all of them. My pops are all both buried, right? And I buried them. I can say that. I paid for their burial. Like, I buried them. So I can talk shit. So this is what happens, Jay. Let me give you a little bit of 50-year-old wisdom here. When we start, our parents, I'm going to put in the camera. The parents are here, and we're here.
Yeah.
And what happens is we start changing where we almost become their peers, right? Yeah. So we become their peers, and what that means is they come to you for financial advice. They don't know certain things. With me, it was very early because my mother didn't speak English. I was her translator, her accountant, her lawyer. I was everything. I read the leases. Like, I'm 12. Like, read this. What does this mean? I'm like, I don't, Gotcha. Anyway, but then what happens is this, right? And this is where you're going to have to reach down. And that's my personal opinion. And you can take it.
I think you're absolutely right.
No, absolutely. You got. If it was me and you have the time, you just pull up and we talk this out. Like, because there'll be that day, and I'm speaking from fucking experience, that you can't knock on that door.
Yeah.
So you can't have that.
That's my biggest fear, just not being able to make amends. And before, like, God forbid something happens. My dad's a very active guy, but, like, father time waits for no man. My dad is 72. No, 71 years old. Goes on 100-mile bike rides. He still thinks he's like a 20-something-year-old Marine.
Is that why you ride bike?
Yeah. My dad used to force feed
But
it.
you see all the things that he's
Everything
left
I
on
do
you.
now is because my father instilled it in me, and I totally understand it, and I get that. Because the reason why I have a passion for fitness, my father had me running at, like,
that's awesome.
5, 6 years old. We were always doing active things. I grew up watching him being active, so it was only natural that I become this active person.
I think we talked about this before. You're the youngest?
Yes, my brother was 4 years older than me and myself. Yeah.
Okay, so he's not that much older than you. And then your brother has a relationship with your pops?
No, man.
He went and got the smoke because what you said, he wrote something online.
Yeah,
he went to get the smoke with Pops.
Yeah, he sent my dad a letter, and my pops saying, like, the contents of it. Even though my brother did say that that his thoughts were his individual thoughts, nothing that reflects myself or my mom. You know what I mean? But he just felt some type of way about it, and then I've been just struggling and trying to figure out how to fix that relationship, man. And
how long has it been? 2 years?
2 years, bro. Yeah. 2 years, man. And it's like, I'll call my mom, and it's like I can hear him in the back, and my man wants nothing to do with it. And I think it's kind of like what you said. That's why I asked that question, because I look to you as like a mentor, because a lot of the things that we have spoke about, I've actually applied to my life, and my shit has jumped up exponentially, man.
Congratulations.
So
That makes me incredibly happy.
Oh, absolutely,
and
bro.
super humbling, and thank you for saying that, because that's the fucking point. The point is we should all be accelerating.
1,000%.
And it should all be like, yo, try this, try that. Like,
Yeah.
it should always be that.
Yeah, because I consider I consider you a man of high value, right?
Thanks,
so
I
if you're
appreciate
taking
that.
time to have a conversation with me and you're dropping gems, like I'm gonna listen, because like, I respect you, because like,
Appreciate that.
I know that you're a successful man, right? I see that you're a family man. I see that you're a businessman. Like, these are things that I aspire to be. So it's like, if I'm gonna be in a room with a guy who's willing to give me a little bit of information, I'm going to take that, because
let's talk about imposter syndrome for a minute, all right? Because I want you to understand this, because I suffered it. And I think the last time, and I put it to bed, the last time was when we bought the house in New Rochelle and where I live. And, obviously it's a very nice neighborhood. And I don't know, nobody, I had 1 or 2 millionaires in my family, but they were hood millionaires, like, meaning they stood in the hood. Like, no offense. Like,
I get it.
But here I am, raising my family, and what I mean by that, raising their awareness, raising their ability, raising their opportunities, because just proximity is power, right? Being in the right places at the right time could change everything. And I forgot where I was. Oh, I was going to a store. And I thought for a second, I was like, oh, should I dress this way? Should I, cause the store. Yeah, I had a second, and I went over there, and I ran into Joe Torre there one day, and I just whatever. And then finally I said, you know what, man? Nora Ephron, Nick Pileggi, like, these are all like big time people I met in Manhattan when I was young, and they were the coolest motherfuckers in the world. Yeah. And they dress crazy. And I'm like,
yep.
So here's the part. Here's the part that's actually really important that you have to listen to, and anybody listening to this podcast should listen to. What happens is, when you're a strong-looking individual, and I use that not to sound braggadocious, but rather you're intimidating. That is a factor. That, I don't care where you walk in a room, your presence, it demands attention, right? So good or bad. So now what you do with that attention becomes the defining moment, right? Like, you can be an educated person and say, hey, how you doing? Like, and be a normal person, or act like a savage, and like, going back to the animal, like, in the right place, you need that guy. You don't need him all the time. And so you got to embrace all of you. You got to embrace all of it. You got to embrace all of it. Like, this is all you, imperfect and beautiful. And that's the part that most people don't understand. They're like, oh, I haven't interviewed for a job in like 30 years. I wear a suit because I want to. Like, other people are like, oh, you dress. I don't feel like dressing up today. I feel, or my wife just had me clean out my closet this weekend. I saw my suits and I put them on. I'm in shape. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll rock, because I want to. Yeah. But it's different when you want to, and then you have to. Yeah. Right? When it's an obligation, it's different than it's something you just want to do. Right? And I say these things to mention them because it's all mindset. It's the way you approach it, right? I have to. You don't have to do anything, man. Like, I was thinking, should I wear a sweatsuit to work tomorrow? Like, just to be comfortable, because I might have to move some stuff, like some boxes. So I'm like, I'm not gonna wear a suit. But this is the life of an entrepreneur, where one day I have to meet for $1 million listing, the next day I have to move boxes in the building. Like, you never know. You never know what you're gonna get. But you got to be okay with it, and you got to be comfortable in your own skin. So going back to that story, 3 years ago, I had a second, and I was like, you know what? I deserve to be here. I do the work. I qualified for the loan. I do all these things. I was like, and I know guys that worth close to $100 million, and they're just like us, bro. They're cool. I mean, they have their shit. Everybody has their shit, right? We all have our shit. But they put their shoes on one at a time, like us. Like, and that's the one thing. Like, I think Obama said it recently. It's like, you get to the table, and these niggas ain't all that, and that's okay. I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying we all can sit at this table and talk. I mean, as long as we're talking I use the word education-wise, meaning not just spitting shit because we heard it somewhere, but rather facts. Like, when we're discussing things, we have to have, like, some sort of backup. The problem with the internet now is everybody talking shit, and nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah,
like, they're just talking some gibberish. And then they're like, yo, Omar, why are you not answering me? I'm like, because what you're saying is stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that there's no other way to say that. Why don't you get some facts, bro? Like, don't.
I won't entertain.
Yeah, like, well, I can't deal with that, man. I have other things I have to deal with. Going back to, I make the time. I'm not making the time for that conversation. That's not happening. Those are some hard truths and uncomfortable truths that sometimes, and I feel like you're the right person to talk to about it because you walk a lot of corridors, right? So I know the things that I'm saying you've experienced or you experience now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And it should be okay to talk about them because I feel the more we talk about it, fucking cultural inclusion. Like, that word pisses me off. DEI. That word pisses. Yo, how about we be a good human?
Yeah.
Throw all the marketing and branding aside. Just be a good fucking human, right?
I say that
Would
every
you
day.
do that to your mother? Would you do that to your child? No, then don't do it to that
Don't do
person.
that. Yeah, you're right.
Very simple. It's very, very simple if you break it down. But most of the world is not ready for that.
Yeah, because they haven't. You know what it is? I think life experience too. If you don't have anything anything close to that in your family of something that you've seen in close proximity, then you have no relation to it. And you get. I mean, I see it at work. Like, you know, you go.
You
to
see
certain,
all that shit at work. All of
you
it.
go to certain calls, and some people are just like, too bad, so sad. When I can really empathize.
Where there's no human connection. There's no empathy,
man.
right?
It's like that shit blows my mind, especially now with the position that I'm in now. So I'm like, I don't do the SWAT
So
stuff
what's
anymore.
your position now? Well, let's talk about what was your position, because I want people to know who the fuck I'm talking to.
Yeah, so I was a SWAT operator. I was on our emergency services team.
Special weapons and tactics, boys.
Yep. So I did that for a decade, and I felt like it was time for a change. So it was a position opened up for our mental health outreach team, and I put in for it. So I interviewed. I got the gig. I've been doing it for going on 20 months now. So I'm just waiting to get my promotion to detective.
So what is a mental health outreach person do?
So what we do is we deal with. So we're peer supporters. So if there's any kind of traumatic situation that happens at work, they'll call myself or my partner in, and we'll kind of debrief what just happened. So like if someone, dealt with something that's considered a traumatic incident, I'm there to make sure that they have the resources. So if you need to speak to somebody, you'll talk to me. I'll put you in line with somebody who can help you walk through what you just saw.
Right.
If I haven't dealt with it personally, then I'll put you with a professional that can help you. If it's deeper than that, then you'll go see a therapist or whatever have you. But that's one thing that I do. Another thing I do is I work with our homeless population.
In Yonkers?
No, in White Plains.
White Plains.
But I can get, if you're in the county of Westchester, I can attach you to resources.
Okay.
We do that, and then I work with people who have substance abuse issues. So, there's programs out here where, it's called Hope's Not Handcuffs. So it's just like a primary example where if someone said tomorrow, hey, I want to kick this habit, but I have no resources. I don't know how to go about it. I can call Hope's Not Handcuffs and get them to rehab. You know what I'm saying? So just me now on the tail end of my career going out, I feel like me giving back is a huge part of like a legacy that I want to leave. I was a proactive guy for a very long time. Then I got into the tactics and the operator type stuff, and then now I'm doing like the community giving back, and it's very rewarding, very fulfilling. And the last checklist on my like career to-do list was detective, and I get the shield through that. So.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
When is that happening?
Should be happening within the next month or so.
Congratulations.
So, all right. Yeah, man. So Detective Lacayo, and then I can ride off into the sunset, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one thing I wanted as a police officer.
Okay.
Was to make
so you retired detective?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless I decided to take like a supervisor exam, which I don't really see myself doing.
No. So you see 20 and out?
That's me, man.
Yeah.
20 and out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd rather do something more fulfilling.
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
So, and I'm not trying to walk you into any trap here. So, the job in year 20 feels more than an obligation than a real thrill, right? Like you feel like you put your time in. You've seen some ugly shit.
Yeah, because, if I'm being honest, it is an obligation. It's not something
Right. It's nothing you're enjoying right now.
No.
Right. Because you see, and if I'm speaking for you, to your old show. You're seeing humanity at its fucking worst, bro.
Yep.
When you get a call, it ain't because, yo, what's up? Come have a drink.
Yeah.
It's saying,
it's never for something
somebody
good.
Killed somebody hurting somebody, something's happening that could be in a horror movie, and you got to come and try to figure it out how to make it right.
Yeah, bro. And then now, especially like me being as aware as I am now, I think when you're young, you don't understand life. So you don't really get certain calls. So I can give you...
Your conscience is lifted. Yeah, I got you.
So as I've gotten older, there's been certain calls that I've went to that I've responded to differently. You know,
because you're different.
Because I'm different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, now we're getting deep.
You know, yeah. So like I can give you, 2 calls, same call, just 10 years difference, and I was a completely different person on the second call than I was on the first call.
Right.
You know, and then like you get these calls where I won't go into too much detail, but I basically was talking to a woman who had a terminal illness and had a young child. Damn. And she was young.
Yeah.
And it's like, I left that day, and when I'm telling you I was destroyed, bro.
Yeah.
Like to know that this young woman has a young child that she will not see grow up.
Leave, yeah. I'm with you.
Yo, it destroyed me, bro. But like you got to be at work and be this like...
Be okay.
Yeah, the stone-faced pillar, because she's looking to you for some reassurance and like, yo, am I gonna be okay? And like, I'm just like, damn, bro, because like it was funny. I'm asking her questions about like the child, and it was like she couldn't really answer it, right?
Like what?
How old is the kid?
Oh,
so if you think about it,
so mentally she wasn't.
So if you think about it, right, I'm dying. So if I catch, like, if I pay attention to like the age of the child, I'm one day closer to die. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and it was just, dude, it was so bad, man. I remember just driving home and just being like, count your blessings, people, because if you got somebody around you that loves you, that is a part of your life, tell them that you love them, that you appreciate them, reciprocate, because there's somebody out here who's dealing with something far tougher than anything you could ever imagine. Especially having like that particular situation just really crushed me, because it's a young child and it was like a healthy, beautiful child. And like she just was just like so withdrawn because
the mother.
Yeah, she was dying, bro.
Yeah, she couldn't embrace it.
And like
she was preoccupied with her own mortality.
Man, it was just so bad, man. And then there was like a part where we like tried to call the father of the child to come pick up the baby. And my man wanted nothing to do with it. And I'm just be like, I was just like, yo, you're a real POS, bro. Like, I don't know if you know the full extent of what's happening, but like the record shows she's been dying for like quite some time, and you don't give a shit to come get your kid. Like, that's crazy. So you see stuff like that, and you're just like, you give up on humanity sometimes, man, because it's like, how do you have this, like, it's a beautiful child, right? And like, okay, you don't like her. That happens. You grow apart, but it has nothing to do with her. That child is still yours. Half those chromosomes that created him are yours. And you don't care enough to come grab your kid. Wild. So when you see shit like that,
I mean, this is not as drastic as what you're saying, but I'll give you an example, right? Like, being married for 20 something years, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. But whenever I'm down or have been down, like the concept to me has always been like, okay, well, how do I figure this out? How do I leave them, how do I leave everybody in a good situation? Like, and I think that to me is my responsibility to my family because I love them. Whereas I'm using that as just an example because I remember in the 80s especially, there was a very big exodus of men from the house.
Yep.
And that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to say is that them niggas left, and they left everybody. They left their kids, my pops included, and financially, they left the women. Like, they left people fucked the fuck up. And man. I was like, I'm like, fuck you, bro. Like I made peace with him. My biological father died when I was 18. Me and him had a good 3-4 year relationship out of 18. And I buried him, and it is what it is. But like, I have my boys now, and I'm like, nah, never. Like, I gotta. Okay, I guess I gotta figure this out, but how am I doing this? Like, it's never like I'm just leaving. You can't do that. So, but it becomes your testamentary as a man, right? Whatever that, or provider, or patriarch, whatever word you want to use there, because whatever other like female relationships to be a woman, but like it's your commitment to your family,
That's
right?
what we're supposed to do: protect and provide
and guide.
And guide.
I always throw that. I always throw that and guide.
Absolutely.
And guide. No, Shaq got it, protect and provide, but he's not talking about guide. You got to guide them, because if not, they just aimless. Yeah, right. Man. You got to give them some.
And that is so important, especially in like a young man's life, to have
a male role model.
A male role model, man, 1,000%. Because I noticed there's a difference when a guy grew up in a predominantly like female household versus the kid who grew up in a household where he had, you know, like a real male role model that taught him how to do things and how to operate in the real world.
And by the way, when we say role model, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when we say male role model, it doesn't mean like, yo, I'm the fucking man. It just means, yo, man, I'm a man. This is how I deal with shit.
Yep.
Right? And it might not be right. It might just the way I do it. You can take it and modify it as you see fit, but right, because men and women are different, and it's not better or worse. We're just different, and we deal with things different, and there's different pressures put on us.
Because that kid that's coming to you for that advice, he has to see something in you that he sees in himself.
Yes.
So that's
that he can
why
identify with.
Yeah. So that's why it resonates so much with that young man. Because if you think about it, it goes back to like tribal shit, right? When you're a teenager, and this is something I'm finding out now, because like part of my job description is I go to different schools, right? And I work with Friends for Recovery Westchester, and we just have conversations with kids about mental health things and stuff like that, right? In different parts of the county. There's a huge difference if I go speak to somebody who's in like Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Greenburgh, versus someone who grows up in Katona, you know, somewhere else, you know, Mount Kisco, you name it. There's a big difference, and I'm starting to realize that environment, right, has a lot to do with the outcome of where your child is going to end up. Huge. Because like I always thought, because like, you know, I grew up in a pretty urban environment. I'm like one of the outliers though, but I also was one of the guys that had both parents at home who were like gainfully employed.
That was different.
I had a father who was like involved. Like if I got out of line, he's knocking me over my head, making sure that I right the ship, right? And I knew kids, same neighborhood, right, who didn't have that father figure, but like still blue collar, you know, because when I got older, we moved to Yonkers and we lived in this like condo complex, and it was all like middle class. Working people. Right. So,
and that's a culture in itself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I can give you 6 kids, 6 different results, same type of family.
Right.
You know, so environment has a lot to do with it, because I'm noticing, like, you know, you go to Mount Vernon and like these kids are mixy. They want to get in this shit, you know, and you can tell that they have no respect for like authority in some cases. Some kids did, some kids didn't. But I feel like the further north I went, the more yes sir, no sir. More like just involved and like wanted to be a part of the process. Whereas these kids are like, nah, I'm good. Like, what am I really doing here?
Right.
And I'm just like, wow. And I never believed that.
Yeah, until
you see it. So now as I'm getting older and I'm starting to mature, and I'm be like, oh, I see why people move out the hood and they go wherever, you know, because they don't want their kids to experience the stuff that they experience. They want to give them the best, you know, option out there for them to succeed. Right. And so and I hear that with you, like, you know, like, hey, I moved my family here. Like, yeah, that's what we work for, bro, to level up and get out of the you know, break the cycle.
Hov is the most popular person to say this statement, but I have to say it also, is that I didn't work this hard to stay the same.
Yeah.
Like, and
it's a fact.
And the thing is, you want your kids to have better opportunities than you. And the way, going back to what you said, I'm just jumping over, controlling the environment doesn't guarantee anything, but it helps.
It helps.
It helps because there's less shit that your kid could fall prey to.
Thank you. Yep. You said it right there. Perfect.
I use the word on purpose because there's a lot of predators out there, not just people. Yeah. Fucking society. Society, bro, is predatorial, right? Break it down even further for you. Like, I remember when we first came from Puerto Rico. I know Puerto Rico is the United States, but I feel like, you know, it's a fucking island and nobody speaks English over there. So we come over here. And my aunt's trying to kick game with my mom, and she's like, "Oh, this is in Spanish, I'm paraphrasing. Yo, listen, get you on food stamps, get you on Medicaid, get you on Section 8, you be good." And you know, you don't have a job, you know. So she's like, "Okay." But my mom went to work, right? But me, as I grew up, I was like, "Nah, this ain't it. This ain't it." And this is before I knew about the rules. And the rules, I'll give you an example. Section 8: if you make too much money, you no longer qualify. So you get this free money if you stay here. Now, if you stay here, that means these are the jobs you're looking at. That's it. Like, understand how that placement of population works, right? If you make too much, you're out, right? You can't be on the lease. Like, there's a lot of rules to it. And this is another podcast.
A lot of stipulations.
Yeah, but there's a lot of rules to this free money, right? So, like, make sure you stay here. If you get too good, you're out of here. And then you never had anything, so like getting too good seems so unachievable.
Yeah, so
because
far-fetched,
but remember, because you're surrounded by people in the same, like crabs in a barrel. You're surrounded by people in the same thinking, and I use that first conversation to give you the illustration where I'm gonna put you on. You're gonna make this is gonna be great.
Yeah.
And you know, me as a kid, I'm like, but later, and when I say later, I mean 13, 14, 15. I'm like, yeah, this shit ain't it.
Yeah.
Like I don't like being broke. I don't like.
You realize that at a young age.
I don't like having this shit, and I don't think I want to be around these people because, and when I say these people, I don't mean a culture in particular. When I mean I don't mean an ethnicity in particular. I mean a culture. And the culture is predatorial. Like, and I'll use this example, and you can tell me if you don't feel the same. In the hood, in the projects, one day you friends, next day you fist fighting.
Yep.
And then the next day you friends again. Like,
yep.
No, that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Or your man sleeping with your girl, and that's not normal. Let me say that, please. That's not normal. And if they think it's normal and you don't, then you need to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem. We normalize a lot of wild
deviant
shit.
behavior.
Yeah.
Deviant behavior.
Yep. And I'm happy you touched on that because I feel like I say that and nobody ever listens to me.
Because they never lived through it. It's so foreign to them, right? But I've lived through, like, I'm not talking shit about something I think. I've lived through all this. I've seen it, like,
this is lived experience.
I'm like, this don't feel right to me. I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel right. And then later on, you get consciousness, you get older, you start getting awareness, and you're like, nah, this ain't real. This is not. I was definitely on the wrong.
How it's supposed to be.
This ain't it.
Yeah. It's wild, man. Like, I'm happy you touched on that because I always talk about that and nobody ever listens to me, man. They're like, what? Like, yeah, man, because like once you remove yourself from that environment and you see how others operate, you're like, oh shit, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right, this is wrong.
Never knew this.
Right.
You know,
it's like just taking somebody from a really bad neighborhood to a nicer neighborhood, right? I'll use an example. If you're in a neighborhood that's mostly tenants, right? There's a lot of garbage on the streets.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't own it. There's no ownership. It's just work mentality. When you go to a neighborhood that everybody owns it, you know, I have a thing for people who have night lights. I like, bro. Like, to me, it's like if you have lights at night, you're a baller. Like I know, because I know what it costs. Because I do that shit. I'm like, yo, he's doing it or she's doing it.
You know what's funny? It's funny you mentioned that. Right? I'm the guy, right? I was never this dude, but this is how I know
who you becoming.
Who I'm becoming. I'm the guy who writes emails to the HOA. Like, hey, you know, there's a person out here who's walking their dog off leash. You might want to get on that. Send. Boop. I was never that guy. But now I'm that guy, you know. Like that's part of the, you know, for me that's the maturation process, you know.
Well,
like,
yeah, because you're aware of what it's not supposed to be like, right?
Because let me tell you, and I'm going to tell a short story. I went to the 4-2 precinct, right? And
4-2.
4-2
Dog's Neck.
No. 4-2 is like
was that 4-5? That's 4-5. My bad.
Yeah, that 4-2
is Bruckner.
Yes.
Yeah, Hunts Point.
Right.
Yeah,
so
there's a lot out there, guys. 4-2. He wasn't playing around.
So I had to drive down the concourse, right, off the Mashalou, right, and then kind of go through my old precinct to get to the 4-2. So I used to work in the 4-6, 181 in Ryer Avenue.
That's pretty live too.
Yo, let me tell you, and this is how I know, because I'm so conditioned to driving up here, going to work. I have a 15-minute commute. Super nice. I got foliage. Yeah. You know,
that's trees, guys.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Right. I'm driving. I got little or no lights. There's no speed cameras. There's no real assholes. Maybe somebody will cut you off. Yo, Omar, when I tell you, when I got to the Grand Concourse, this level of, and it was anxiety, which I'm now realizing what it was, just took over. It's 7-something in the morning, and when I'm telling you the concourse is active, it's active. They're out there, and shit is happening, right?
It's lit, yeah.
It's lit, and I'm like, what is going on?
The scooters, the e-scooters?
Scooters was out there. The dudes with the satchels on the back of the scooter. It was just a lot of shit going on, and I was just like, yo, I have no desire to be here. But I had to go down there. I was speaking to...
I do some work, but I'm out of here. Yeah.
Like, once I got there, but I just realized, I'm like, yo, I took for granted my commute and where I work, and it goes back to what you just said. Like, you're looking around, and there's graffiti everywhere. There's fiends on the corner. There's
spitting all over the place.
Yeah, there's shit on the street, garbage everywhere. And I'm just like, the totality of looking at all of those things and experiencing that on a day-to-day basis definitely takes a toll on your mental. I don't care what anybody says. If you lived in that for 10 or 15 years, I think you all should be entitled to free therapy, because there's shit that you saw, you experienced that you did not need to. Because I remember, like, it all started to kick up all this stuff, like
old memories.
Yeah, man. Like, I remember, being a kid and being on like 182 in Valentine. Like, my aunt used to live there.
Hot out there too.
Hot as hell, man. And I remember, like, and I'm an '80s baby, so crack was just like it was hand in hand.
That was
right
a drug of choice.
Yeah, it was hand in hands right in front of me, man. And I'm like 5, 6 years old. I could vividly remember red tops, purple tops. I can remember these things.
Going to the park, they all
and seeing them shits all over the place. Like, I'm
Yeah.
from that era, so like driving back down there now as an adult, as a person who's like moved out of the city and like doesn't really live in that environment anymore. You realize, like, damn, bro, that's not normal, but we normalized it. Like, we operated on that frequency for such a long time that it was just normal to us. But it's not normal, man. I was like freaking out. I said,
The word you're looking for is conditioned.
Conditioned.
You become
yes.
conditioned to it,
Yes.
right? And it's almost like going back to the project story, like guys fighting, sleeping with each other's girls, and hanging out. I'm like, nah, this ain't normal, guys.
yeah.
No, it's cool. It's cool. No, it's not cool. No, it's not cool. Like, I had to raise the fuck up out of it. That's when I started growing. I was like 14, and I was hanging out. Like, I came from a real tough neighborhood. Then my step pop moved us to Pelham Bay, and I was resistant because I knew the hood.
Yep.
So I was like, no, I'm not going over there. I'm staying with my people.
Yeah, I
And
used
then
to be like
finally,
that.
one day I was like, fuck this. I was like,
it's nice over
fuck
here.
these people. I was out of here.
Yeah,
But
man.
the conditioning is a big deal. It becomes a thing where it's normal because you see it. It's almost like violence, right? You see violence all the time. It's no big deal.
Normalize it.
Now
Yeah,
I see. I'm like, yo, what's going on?
Yeah. This ain't right.
Yeah, what's happening?
And I said that too. I said, like, there's a fun fact that I read the other day that I had no clue was even a real thing.
Okay.
Do you know the average human experiences 6 traumatic events in their entire life? 6.
So we're superhuman?
Superhuman, bro.
Have to be.
We let me tell you something. Between me losing friends, right? Because they said the average person doesn't lose a family member till they're like way older. I lost several family members, not from old age, not from some like terminal illness,
From the
just
streets?
from streets, and you're telling me that.
And let me talk. This for you guys out there saying, yeah, they're on the streets, bro. Bro, listen, losing your friend is losing your friend. We're not saying they were the best people in
I'm
America,
not saying it's justifiable,
but
yeah.
losing somebody to violence or whatever, it still hurts. It's still because you can't call that person no more.
Yeah.
You can't say what's up. Like,
Can you imagine being with somebody on a Monday and they're gone on Wednesday?
yo, one of the I don't want to stop you, but I want to give you an example of trauma. Right, my pops died when I was 18. I cried a little bit, whatever, but you're 18, you're trying to be tough. He used to live on Castle Hill, and I used to live in Beaver Avenue on the 6th train. I used to go to NYU. One day, I forgot what day, I can't tell you what day. One day, I'm coming home from school, and I get off on Castle Hill because I wanted to surprise him. He passed. That's when it hit me, bro.
Oh,
I was
shit.
crying. I'm about to cry right now. I was crying on the subway. I was like, damn.
That's wild.
But no, because you bottled it up.
Yeah.
And then you're not accepting it. And
Yeah.
then one day, something forces you to fucking realize it. No, bro, you have to see this now. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna go say what's up to him, see what. And then then it hits you. Then you're like, so going back to traumatic events. That's what I just want to say. It doesn't, and it doesn't always come out there. Like, your body and your mind finds a way to make sense of shit so that you can keep surviving. Going back to the animal.
So I'm happy you mentioned that because we are, your body processes trauma differently, right? And so you say that, and I was telling you about this call that I went to, right? 10-year difference, different human being.
Right.
So it was a dead infant call, right?
Oh my God.
Right.
Wow.
So 22-year-old Jason never held like a newborn.
Yeah.
It was like
It's Monday.
Yeah, it wasn't even. It was just. It wasn't real to me. It was like a movie.
Right.
It was almost like okay, and it was like the condition of that particular like call was like the baby was like in a dumpster, so it was no real like human attachments. Like you look in there, you see it, but it was in my brain. 22-year-old Jason was like, no, I said, dog, that shit is not real.
Right.
And I kind of
You're trying to rationalize it. Yeah,
rationalize
absolutely.
it, right?
Absolutely.
So you suppress all of that, right? Then now I'm 30-something years old. I go to a call. I get it was, unresponsive baby, and it ends up being like this child was dead for about 2 hours. It had rigor, a little bit of lividity, so obvious signs of death. But when the lady handed the baby over to my partner, it looked like a sleeping baby. And like body language, the people that you hang out with on a daily basis. I'm with this dude every single day. I know his body language. I know what type of human being he is. And when she handed him the baby, he just like deflated, right? Yeah. So now this is a guy who's now held his niece and who has like a connection with a small child.
Baby. Yeah, with a baby.
And like my heart was like broken, bro, because like it wasn't the mother that handed us the baby. It was like a family friend. The mother showed up later to the hospital. Oh. And what happened was, long story short, tired, rolled over.
Smothered?
Smothered the baby. Oh. Babies have very small lungs.
Yeah.
And, the baby passed. And the worst part about this whole call, right, was there's a part of it where I guess the hospital personnel knew the baby, was like familiar with like the mom and the baby.
Okay.
So they swaddled the baby in like a blanket and they put it in like, that little like, that clear baby crib that they put them in when they're first born. So they did that to the baby. And this was the wild part, right? This shit broke my heart, Omar. She comes in and picks the baby up.
She thinks it's okay.
And starts like bouncing the baby, and a little bit of mucus started to come out of the baby's nose. She wipes the baby's nose and goes, "You see, my baby's gonna be okay." When I'm telling you, everything in me, man, and like, cause you can't cry.
Right.
Because this woman I'm about to tell her.
You gotta be a pillar. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This kid is not coming back.
Right.
And this is when I realized, like, life is short. I tell this lady, she loses it, throws herself on the ground, starts crying, just goes off, right? And then the coroner comes, and they had like a little chest, bro.
Damn.
Like a little toy chest. He unwrapped the baby, threw the baby in the chest, threw that shit in the van, and just pulled off like it was nothing. I was like, yo. I remember going home.
Going back to conditioned, right? That guy deals with death all day. Yeah. So to him is Monday.
I just looked at this dude like, damn. But like you said, it's just a Monday. And I just remember driving home, bro. This is hours after. Just fucking balling. Just lost it. And I was just like, I never want to see no shit like that again, bro, because that was just heart-wrenching. I can't even imagine what that lady feels like, but if I'm feeling like this, I can't even imagine what she feels like.
So,
man, it just gives me chills just thinking about it, bro.
So I think the title of this podcast is going to be Superheroes Need Help Too.
Facts.
Absolutely. I think that's where we're going to go with this, man. I mean, I want to thank you for sharing. I shared about my son, you shared about your pops. That's heavy. I think you should call him.
I'm going to do that.
Or if you have the time and the money, pull up. Just pull up, because OGs like that, man.
I'd rather just pull up.
Yeah, just pull up.
I don't think the call's gonna work.
No, I'll be like,
hey,
up, though. You live here? Just break the ice like that and just be like, yo, we got to talk. Why? Yeah. Because I can't live like this. Just be real, because that's what he can appreciate, because he can't be real with himself yet. You know what I'm saying? Because God forbid, and first of all, you're a responder, right? Like your new job is not as dangerous, but it's still dangerous.
It can happen any day,
it's still dangerous, right?
Still running
so, like, what would he do?
Yeah.
God forbid. He can't call Jason, right? Now, because he can, he takes it for granted. The day you can't is when it really becomes valuable, bro. It becomes, and I'm saying that from experience. Like, how many times I look at my phone and I'll be like, damn, man, my mother hasn't been able to call me. She passed this year for 8 years. And that shit hurts. Like, not because she didn't want to, but she's blind. She, like, you know what I'm saying? She went through some shit, and I'm like, people take it for granted. Like, you gotta pick up. Even though I got my crazy aunts. I had 7 aunts, 2 uncles. Right? Yeah, 7 aunts, 2 uncles. I think I got 4 left. They call me, I pick up. And in the middle of that, like, what's up, girl? Like, they're talking some wild shit. And because you never know. I don't think of it in a scarcity mindset. I just think of it as a value mindset. Be like, look, I don't have a lot of time today. What's going on? Oh, did you know that, Kamala didn't win? I'm like, it's been a month, babe. I was like, no, but thanks for letting me know. That's the crazy shit, that the calls that I'll get, from Puerto Rico. I'm like, Kamala didn't win. You're right. What are we going to do? Right? And you just let that rock for a little bit and appreciate their time, because, and this ties into your pops. Like, they all have their concept of contribution.
Yep.
Right? So you can't minimize it, can't diminish it. You got to love it. right? Because even though, going back to the whole thing I told you about, right?
Mhm.
And we get like, we got to be there kind of like when you were like a little kid putting your fucking shoes on, bro. Like, this nigga's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like, I got to wipe this kid's ass now. All right.
Yeah.
I got nephews. I got to do that too. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. But there'll be a day that they might have to wipe my ass.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I'll be like,
You're right.
yo, I paid into this one. I paid into this pension.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, man.
So that's my advice. Please, I'd love to
I'm gonna
hear
take
about
up on
that,
for
man.
Sure. I'll keep you posted with that.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
For
Thank
sure.
you for your time. Thanks for sharing, man. I think this is gonna be helpful.
Yeah.
I really think so, man.
It was a great conversation for me. Just
Yeah,
to see
yeah.
you're kind of going through some of the stuff I went through. So
Yeah. Please, at the end of the day, we're all going through it. It's all perspective and our ability to kind of, I don't want to say cope, but rather process and then determine what our action is, right? Like, everybody has their process. Like, giving you an example, my pops, I was 18. It took me a month or two to come to realize, to really embrace that this guy had passed. Because I was so busy. Oh, I'm busy in school. I'm busy. I'm so busy. And then one day you're like, oh, I got time. And you're like, wow, bro.
Yeah.
Like, think of, now you gotta like open up and be like, yo,
it's no longer a thing. Yeah.
this is not
He's
not a possibility anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So on that note, man, Jay, where can they hit you? Detective Jason Lacayo.
Yeah. You can find me at The Real Jumpman Jay on Instagram, The Real Jumpman Jay on TikTok.
Have they ever approached you about buying that?
No.
23.
No.
You know you need to.
Yeah,
I like that you got that
man.
one. I like that
because the fact that the real is in front of there is great. So
Yeah.
I'm the real. So we'll see where that goes, man. I got some things coming though in the new year.
What do you want to talk about?
Nothing crazy. I can't really speak on it till they drop it.
Okay,
yeah. But it's after the new year. They're gonna drop something and you'll see my face.
I'm looking
some
forward.
places. Yeah.
I'm looking forward. Me, Omar, everywhere. Any questions, anything, anytime, I'm available. Thank you.